I've always been a believer and a dreamer. And I think that understanding that
Mm,
allowed me to push forward, because my biggest thing that I always told myself, and I think maybe this could go back to, for your sake, the thing that moved you was the fear. For me, I think it was the regret of not building my vision, living out my dream, not doing what I wanted to do, being a creative, being an entrepreneur, a business owner. I think if I didn't pursue that, I would live in regret, and the biggest thing I didn't want to do was live in regret. Especially with the regret of knowing that I could have done it, and I decided not to because I allowed
mm.
comfortability or safety or society to persuade and hinder my thought process. And I was just like, I'm not gonna allow that, and that's why I took that opportunity when it was given to me like that by God, because I was just like, this is the sign. This is the sign.
Welcome back to the Happy Positive Energy Game podcast with me, your host, Luke Anning. And I hope all of you beautiful people are feeling bright and warm. And if not, that's exactly why we are here today. I've got a special guest for you guys. I've got Anthony Mendez. He's an entrepreneur with 12 years of experience in the health and fitness industry and 8 years as a marketer and social media specialist. He is also a Puma athlete and a co-host of the Swear It Out podcast, which highlights conversations about lifestyle, entrepreneurship, business, and mindset. And on top of that, he's a business coach and a marketing agency owner for the health and fitness professionals looking to start, grow, and scale their online fitness businesses and helping them to generate 6 to 7 figures a year. And he's coming in from all the way from Miami today. So how are you doing, brother? How are things?
Hey Luke, thank you, brother. Thanks for having me on, man. Everything's great. Kind of how we were talking before the podcast started. Just been spending time with a family during the holidays, and then now, jumping back on the train of getting everything going with the business, with our team, getting them situated, and rolling for the new year. So I'm excited for that.
Yes, sir. That's it. That's it. I've got a question around leadership. If I think that's a good right to start with this. So I appreciate you've got a team, but it wasn't always having a team. And I feel like a lot of people listening to this have big aspirations to grow businesses and to grow themselves, and they're not sure if they actually have the power to have leadership within them. But have you always been a leader? But if not, how did you step into that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And one thing I've learned around my journey is that every follower can be a leader and every leader can be a follower. So I think that one of the biggest things that when I learned that was, during my journey as being someone who started new into, the journey of my industry, at first I had to be the follower of a leader to learn and then eventually become the leader and have other followers following me, who then it goes around full circle. So I would say at some point, I think that you learn to become that leader once you have followed enough leaders and have grown to become a solidified leader. So I think for anybody out there, who is going through that first starting point in any industry they're in, you have to look for the right leaders who are going to help you to become a strong leader, and then realize that as you keep growing through your life and through your journey, you will be continuously following other leaders above you that you want to be able to eventually learn from them and become a better leader for yourself. So I think it's one of those things that goes back to saying every follower can be a leader, every leader can be a follower. So you're always leading and you're always following other leaders.
Yeah, I somewhat definitely agree because I think without the leadership, that it's like having a role model, right? So
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah, I love the points that you making on that.
The biggest things that, with leadership is that I think that you have to be able to hone in and understand that as a leader, it's not all about, so I think some people think that when you get into this leadership role, it's a role of demanding, or it's a role of telling people, or it's a role of you have to take on every single thing now. And people need to realize that that's not true. As a leader, you have to learn how to be able to delegate your stuff and delegate things to the people who are even better than you at doing certain things that you should not be doing. And you have to be okay with understanding as a leader, you have to be able to put trust in others, and you have to give up power too. If you're a real good leader, you'll learn to give up power in certain areas so that way you can become a better leader to focus on the areas you're stronger in. So that's something that I would say I struggled at the beginning was having built what I built. It was hard to give up power and put trust into other people right away because I knew how to do it a certain way. And I was like, what if this person mess ups? What if they do this? What if they do that? What's going to happen? As a great leader, you realize that in order to grow, you have to give trust and give power and put into others that are specialists and better than you at certain tasks. And that's how you become a great leader when you learn how to orchestrate that together.
Yeah, I feel that. So I'm curious for the leadership side of things, for more so for leading yourself. Do you have like a set of values or like a set of morals that you tend to lean into having in order to lead yourself, in order to then lead others?
Yeah, totally. So, great question. So I would say I look at things as a table, right? And a table has four legs, right? A table has four legs. And for me, the
Mm,
way I explain it, and I tell my team too, I explain to my team is that, your four legs represent each a different thing, right? It represents number one, your health. It represents number two, your self-care. Number three, your friends and family. Number
mm,
four, your business or your job, your whatever it is that you're doing, right? If it's somebody in your team, for them it would be their job, their work. In our case, for myself, it would be my business. So it doesn't matter however you play it, it works on both ends. So the way I would explain it is like that. And you got to understand is you have to make an analysis and see which of those legs is weak. Might be one, might be two, might be three, might be all four. And the reason why I say that is because
mm,
a strong table cannot be moved, but a weak table can be brought down. So if you have a
mm,
table that has three legs, right, that are strong, but it's missing one, the table might still stand, but if
mm,
you touch the table, it will fall, right? And if you have two legs, it's going to be
mm,
like this. If you have one, forget about it. If you have no leg, then
mm,
we got to really work on putting some legs on that table, right? But everybody's legs are different than everybody. Some people have might be stronger in one area, people might be stronger in another. So you have to look at where do I need to work on, right? Do I need to pour more into my health? Could be mentally, physically, spiritually. Do I need to pour more into my self care? What does that mean? Dating yourself, taking yourself out on a date, doing things for yourself, doing a hobby, things of fulfillment for yourself that are going to make you a better person. And then spending times with friends and family. Are you getting the success and the fulfillment of, I spend enough time with my friends and family that made me feel fulfilled and happy, right? And then, of course, your work or your job or your business, very important, right? Are you giving the amount of time, energy, support into your work or into your business that it deserves to have in order to create success? But when you have all those four legs strong, that table, which is you, is not gonna break, right? Or it will be able to take the hits that are
mm,
being thrown at through life. And to me, those are four things that I think that as
mm,
leaders of yourself and as a leader, it's important to portray that to your team because when you learn to portray that to your team, now you can help your team identify what are the weaknesses in themselves. And when they strengthen those weaknesses and you help them, they actually become better team members because now they feel more fulfilled, meaning they're going to
mm,
want to do more of their tasks. They're going to perform better. They're going to have more energy. They're going to be more lively, right?
mm,
They're going to make less mistakes. And
mm.
that's why I think as a leader, it's important to identify those things. Number one, with yourself. And then number two, with your team and helping your team learning how to be able to get better with those four legs.
Yeah, I feel that. So, when's a time when you felt like you had three legs and you were about to tip? And what was the mindset that carried you through that process?
Oh, so I think that at different stages of my life, I felt there's been stronger legs than others. I think that I would say I'll go a few years back. I felt like my health and my self care was like optimal, and then my friends and family and business were not. You know what I mean? And then I've gone full reverse. I felt like
Mm,
my business and has been optimal, and then my self care, my health wasn't as strong. So I would say like I've gone both ways, and I've realized that the biggest way to accommodate and be able to strengthen these legs all together is you have to be a very big, um, how do I say this? You have to be a person who's very on top of their scheduling, right? You have to be very on top of your of building a high
Hmm.
performing schedule. I'm a big advocate of that because I think that when you learn how to build a high performing schedule, you learn how to be able to give time to those things that are most important to you. And you learn to cut the crap out that doesn't serve
Hmm.
you. When you can learn to do that, you can pour into those four legs as much as you need to. It's just all about time management, right? Managing your time efficiently, managing it
Right.
correctly, being dedicated to each of those time slots for those legs that you're putting time into so you get the fulfillment and joy and success out of it. But at some moments you have to understand too, like and this is where it's I'm not saying I don't want to sit here and try to contradict myself, but you got to understand that there is going to be moments where you have to be okay with that there might be some legs that are a little weaker than others. That is okay. And you have to be okay with that depending on what your goal is. So if your goal is to build this business and you're getting it from the ground up, you have to understand you might have to sacrifice a little bit over here. Your health might sacrifice a little bit. Your self care, your friends and family might sacrifice a little bit from a few months to maybe a year, but you have to be okay with that, right? So I think there's a difference between like
Mm.
you're freaking out on this and being okay with understanding, okay, I know I need to do this and this is what's going to take. I might sacrifice here, but I'm willing to get here so that way I can then come back stronger over here and have all four strongly together. So I think you have to realize that at certain moments you will have to make sacrifices and some of those legs might take a hit temporarily to then become bigger and better. So
Hmm.
I'm saying that because I don't want to sound like I'm contradicting myself, but I'm saying it because there is moments in life where those things will happen, but you will learn how to be able to then time manage and build four strong legs so that way you can go be somebody who's living at their highest self and most successful state in their life.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I like to look at I like to look at business sometimes, and this is without having had a child, so you would know more than me with this one, so I'm just spitballing. But like when you start a business, it's going to be like having the baby just born. There's going to be like a lot of energy, a lot of effort. It's going to pull from your resources, and there's going to be times where like you're really unsure with what you're doing, but then as you start growing, as does the baby, and then there's less care needed, but there's still some care there. And then as they get older and older and older, and as the business goes further down the line, there's more automation, there's more time for you, and there's more aspects where I think you can just tie the whole process together. But I think that's sometimes a way that I like to look at it when starting something new.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I think that the most important thing is with all of that is just understanding that again, there's going to be times where there will be some sacrifice on one end versus the other, and that's okay. But you have to be willing to accept that and understand that and be okay with it because if not, you will torment yourself, right? So you have to understand that there's
Hmm.
certain time periods that will happen, and you have to get yourself ready for that, right? For example, like having in my case having my little one when my little one was born, I had to be there 24. Still, she's little, right? It's different in the sense now she can get
Hmm.
up and grab things, she can go do little things and stuff like that. But when they're a baby newborn, you're like full care, so I had to
Hmm.
realize that I'm running a business, have a newborn at the time 4 years ago. That's a lot of sacrifice on the baby and on the business that's going to take away from me. Now, this doesn't mean that you cannot find ways to carve out time for you. What this means is you might not be that high peak health performance, but you can still maintain a well enough lifestyle to at least keep yourself healthy enough, right? So you have to understand there's still
Hmm.
things you can do to keep yourself healthy enough, right? Because you still have the decisions to decide what you're eating, right? You could decide still, hey, I'm putting this into my body versus this. I'm reading these things versus this. I'm doing this versus with the time I do have. And there's ways to be able to
Hmm.
understand it. Now, you might not be that peak high performer you were once was if you were like somebody who was at their fitness peak competing at a high level. Maybe you have to understand you're gonna have to sacrifice that for a while. So it's one of those things where you have to look at it in
Hmm.
those lens and be okay with that specific moment in time where
Hmm.
you're at with it.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel that. Do you think that you can be high performance without a schedule? And for me, this is not my opinion, but I'm just curious because I get a lot of people come to me, and I'm sure you have done as well, where people that just they just don't do things on a schedule. It mind boggles me. But like, do you think you can be high performance without a schedule?
Right? So I would say you have to have a certain level of scheduling. I think that in order to really define high performance, and I think that some people might look at it as like, oh, I'm a high performance, because my fitness, my health is this. Okay, great, but let's look at your other life on the other side. It's not that high
Hmm.
performing, right? So what is a high performer to somebody, right? So I think everybody can define high performance based on what they feel they're performing at their highest level. For me, high performance means I'm performing at a high level on all different levels of success. That means success to me in my life. Am I a high performer at this? Am I a high performer at that? That's to me high performance, right? Because if one thing is lacking, right, and I'm not feeling the fulfillment success over here as a high performer, then I'm not truly living out as a high performer on my all levels that to me mean success. So, I think for everybody it's a little different. I think for me, in order to be able to create that, for me, I have my schedule set up in a way that helps me. Now, can people's scheduling be different? 100%. But I do think there needs to be some kind of framework and structure to be able to live a high performance life. I don't think you could just run around and just, hey, I'm gonna go do this whenever I want or this whenever I want. Forget this. I'm gonna do it. I just feel like when you don't have some kind of a structure, it limits your high performance. When you have
Hmm.
some kind of structure, right? For example, like some people might say, "Oh, you got to wake up at 4 in the morning and do this before everybody else wakes up in order to be high performer." I don't buy that. Like I don't think you have to wake up at 4 in the morning to have to go do this. Now,
Hmm.
does that mean that you wake up at 8, 9, and then you're just doing whatever you want throughout the day? That doesn't make. I don't think that makes you a high performer. I think you can wake up at 8 a.m. and understand that if I time manage my day in a way that works for me, I can be a high performer. And maybe I work a little bit later
Hmm.
at night because that's where I prefer working during versus waking up at 4 in the morning. You could still be a high performer. So I don't buy into the thing of like you have to wake up at
Hmm.
4 a.m. I think some people perform better waking up at 7, 8, 9, and working a little bit later than some people who work better waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning and then working way through and then going to sleep earlier. You have to just find what works for you, but there has to be a framework and structure in place.
Right, 100%. I 100% agree. Like, I definitely, I went for a trial phase of like trying to force 5 a.m.s,
Yeah.
and it was just not happening. So now, like, I'm quite happy with like a quarter to 6 a.m. But then at the same times, like, if there are those nights where I'm like, yo, I'm in a full flow and I'm being really productive right now, I'm just gonna keep going because I have access to doing that where I don't have a family as of yet. I think that's like you said, it's doing what works for you. Like if you have other commitments, then obviously you've got other commitments, but it's ultimately doing something for you.
Yeah. And a high performer is adaptable. You got to remember that too. Like a high performer is adaptable in the sense of when your life pivots and your life makes a change, you can change with it. You can adapt, right? Because I think like going back to what you're saying, like in your case, you don't have a child, you don't have this, but let's say a child presents itself in your life now. You need to adapt.
Hmm.
And a high performer knows how to
Hmm.
adapt, right? So, and it's the way I say it too, a coach knows how to adapt. The best coaches know how to adapt. The best high performers know how to adapt. The best individuals know how to adapt based on the scenarios, the situations, the things that are given. So I think when you learn to adapt, that's when you can also win at a higher level.
Hmm. Yeah, agree. So on your wall behind, and I appreciate not everybody's going to get access to see this, but there's a frame that says failure, 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 like just continuous failures, and then there's like one bit through the side which I'm pretty sure says one yes is success along those lines.
Yeah.
So
It only takes
I'm
one.
curious for you off the back of that, when was a time where you felt like there was just failure after failure after failure after failure coming up, and then what was that success for you?
Yeah, so I think that it presents itself in different stages. I think the first time that I really saw the failure repeating itself over and over again was the first time I got into online fitness coaching when I jumped out of my corporate, setting. And, me expecting that because I
Mm-hmm.
had a following, I had this, that I was going to see massive success. And little did I realize that me just posting a post, thinking, hey guys, I'm online now, that I was with my course, I thought I was going to get all this traction of people and all this stuff with my 100,000 plus followers. And I was like, at the time, and I was like, this didn't work, so I realized I had to go back to the drawing book, find
Mm-hmm.
answers, find a method, find a routine, build a system, learn all this stuff that takes more into that there's more into effect than just posting something and think people are going to fall in your lap. And the failures of learning that and going through the battles of like breaking my head and testing and testing and trying and testing and testing was failure upon failure upon failure. But for me, the way I looked at it, it wasn't even what most people consider failure. To me, it was just feedback. You know what I mean? And I was able to understand that the failure meant feedback. And I think that a lot of times we look at failure as a wrongdoing, and if anything, it's just giving you feedback. Now, you know, you want that feedback so when you perform at the highest stage, you limit your failure, right? When you're performing on the
Mm-hmm.
stage. But on the back end, you every time you fail, you're just getting feedback on how you can be better, how you could do something different, what you shouldn't do before that you now can do differently moving on. So that's how I took it. And again, I've experienced different moments of fear. Look, even recently now with the economy change and the economy shifts, we had another roadblock, with our business doing incredibly well.
Mm-hmm.
Inflation went up. A lot of people depend on credit card and loans and stuff like that to be able to work with us when it comes to some of our packages, depending on the
Mm-hmm.
offerings. And there was another
Right.
setback there. A lot of times, when the economy goes a certain way, interest rates go up on loans, interest rate goes up on credit cards. So that's a pushback for us. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, now we have a roadblock here. Okay, let's try this. Failure, 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 failure. Oh, we're getting creative now. We're trying different things. Oh, this worked. Boom, here's an avenue. Oh, this worked.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, here's an avenue. So I think you gotta understand that at the different stages of your life, your career, your business, you will experience different types of failures. It's just up to you to decide if you're gonna go through it, or and not give up, or if you're gonna allow it to drown you where you're at, and that's where you're gonna stay and move backwards. So one of those things where failure never
Mm-hmm.
stops. It's just how you perceive it and how you react to it is really the answer.
Mm-hmm. It's like if you choose to listen to the failure and you choose to take that as failure and you spiral with that, then everything else becomes a failure and you internalize it and it just goes onwards, right? But if you take it as feedback, like you said, and it's like, okay, feedback, let's shift something, let's do something different, let's tweak something, and then positive feedback, it's like, okay, let's keep doing this, let's keep moving.
Exactly. Exactly.
So so Anthony, I'm curious with the transformation that you've been through. What's the difference between Anthony in the corporate setting versus Anthony now?
So Anthony in the corporate setting. Wow. So Anthony in the corporate setting. This was my last year in the corporate setting. Was literally 2 weeks before 2017. I was 2016, 2 weeks before 2017. I won't forget. I was working for Equinox in Coral Gables. The Anthony in
Mm-hmm.
that corporate setting was a guy who felt like he needed a safety net, but had the ambitions to want to go create. And what kept holding me back was the feeling scared that if I go out there and create, that I wouldn't be able to succeed and sustain myself. And having that safety net over my head, which was a good safety net, I was making great money, as a trainer, making over $100,000 a year. Kept
Mm-hmm.
pulling me back and pulling me away. And I think that honestly, the situation I went through that made me take that leap, I think it was more universe or God, telling me, "Hey, you gotta wake up. I'm giving you this thing I'm doing for you right now is your out. I'm creating your out for you,
Mm-hmm.
whether you like it or not." And
Mm-hmm.
I think that Anthony
What was
before
what was the
was
situation, Anthony?
yeah, yeah. So basically at the time. I was doing some of my side stuff. I was building my social media. I had a little sportswear company while I was working at Equinox. And I had my entrepreneurial spirit that I always had, but I always had to carry on a safety net with me. I always felt like I needed the safety of knowing I have money coming in and I'm being taken care of if something happens. I was like, what if plan B? I always had what if plan B. And if you play in that what if, you're never going to
Mm,
be able to catapult. And for me at the time building that up, at first they were like, oh, great, he's building this cool thing. We'll support his sportswear, blah, 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 blah. They're not thinking it's going to
mm,
grow or anything of it. So eventually they start seeing with me, one
right.
of my other buddies who were shooting content. He used to be an Equinox trainer too. Me and him, we used to do a lot of content together. He would be in his videos, I would be in mine. We would shoot each other, we would edit our own videos. He ends up leaving because he built a big enough following to go do his own thing in person and online. And then
Mm,
I remember I left 3 4 months after he did. During those 3 4 months, they quickly realized my thing was growing fast, and they got
mm,
scared that I was gonna be like him. So what turned from me doing very well over there, which I still was, it became to like a constant like hounding, a constant like, where are you going? Why aren't you gonna stay here at the gym longer? To a constant like, what are you doing later? And it was just like, what is going on? And I was still doing very well, which it was
mm,
like you would expect if I'm doing well, why are you getting on top of me with all these things? And it was because they didn't want me leaving or
mm,
they felt now I was a threat. So what happened was
mm,
during that time, it got to the point where they got one of the managers, I guess, to try to like shake me up or scare me or something. They got one of the managers to come talk to me. It wasn't even one of my manager from my department because my manager had left on vacation. They pulled me in. They start.
right.
So I won't even get into the details of it because it'll be too long. But the whole thing was the conversation didn't end
Yeah.
up well, and it got nasty
Mm-hmm.
from the way he came in and just started attacking to then how I had to like get up and just said I'm walking out. And that left a bad taste in my mouth, and
Mm,
I just literally put a resignation letter because it basically came down to an ultimatum. It's like he basically they said you either stay here at Equinox, um, or you choose what you're doing, but you can't be doing both. And I was just like, yeah, I'm sorry, but nobody, and nowhere in my contract says I can't run a little sportswear company and I can't have my own social media platform where I do my own workouts. Nowhere
yeah.
does it say that. And it was just like left a bad taste in my mouth the way that person reacted, especially somebody who had never had issues with and went from like 0 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like resignation letter. Thank you, company. Thank you, everybody. Made that decision. I said I'm jumping, and I wasn't in a position to jump. Like it's not like oh my god, I saved 6 months worth of income just in case, or like it wasn't like oh my god, I had
Mm,
clients already ready to go. No, like it was from literally one day to 2 3 days after, like I'm on my own, and I think that I needed that push to get me
mm-hmm.
out into the world of me being my creative self and the business entrepreneur that I always wanted to be, but I kept holding myself back, and that's why I said I think it was God, the universe saying, here's your opportunity. If you don't take it, then it's on you, but we're giving it to you right now. Like, doesn't matter if you're prepared or not. Here you go. And I think that it was the first time feeling like a sense of like release off my shoulders, and also as well, um, understanding that I didn't need to play in this safety net world of I gotta
Mm,
have a safety net. And what if a backup plan, this and this? And I think if you put in if you're in your mindset, you say, I need to have a backup plan, I need to have a safety net, you're not gonna be able to ever go 100% into what you're doing. You'll never be able to because your 100% of what you want to do is never going to be viewed as the 100% of what you want to do, because if you have a doubt or you have a safety net on the back end, you're not looking at this as your opportunity to create freedom. You're looking at it as like, oh, maybe
mm-hmm.
I think it can. If it does, and that means you
Mm,
don't fully believe in it. So if you don't fully believe in what you're doing, then you're never going to be able to make that jump. And for me, that was like a huge leap of faith in my career, going from that corporate to independent. And yeah, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for that.
mm. Yeah, thank you for opening up with the story. I really appreciate it. I think it's so powerful where I can no, not that I was in a corporate setting, but there was a lot of things happening within my workplace that was like, it's time to go, and there was no safety net. And then it was like, here's a music events marketing and sales job in COVID. So it was like, this is already sketchy, but it's kind of almost like, it's like, what's the other option, right? You go back, you find something that you don't enjoy, you you pull back. It's like, no way, man. Like, I'm going forward with this.
Yep. Yep. 100%.
So when you were coming through that transition period, what was the thing that really helped you step up to the next level, that really helped you take off within your initial step out of that corporate world?
So I guess the thing that really helped me with the transition was the fact that I had more support than what I thought. And when I mean support is that I had people on the outside, not just people on the inside, but people that I've already had cultivated a relationship with, people, other trainers that had left Equinox prior, other people that they loved what I was doing, and they kept rooting me on. They
Mm-hmm.
kept saying, "Go for it. We're here to support. We're here to help." And I think that helped a lot with that transition period because I didn't see the amount of support that I had from other people who really wanted to see me
Mm-hmm.
succeed on the entrepreneurial side of things. So I would say that's one very important thing. And then I'll say the other thing is just it allowed me to actually dive in deeper with research, building, figure things out, coming up with problem solving skill sets. Because before you were always kept in a nutshell on what they had for you, and there was only
Mm-hmm.
so much you could do. Here I had to think outside the box. Here I had to create. Here I had to learn on my own. Here I had to do my own research. Here I had to go figure out my own problems. And I think that allowed me to be a bit a better person, business individual, and be able to learn how to actually problem solve on my own when you face an issue in your business. And that I would say also helped me through that transition because it didn't allow me to be somebody who just tried to depend on others, for help. I had to learn how to depend on myself now as a business owner. And I think that everybody needs to understand that when you're growing, you have to learn how to be able to depend on yourself for certain things when you're first starting, in the sense of like finding your answers, looking for the stuff, and then building from there so that way you can then become a leader who can then build a team and now your team learns from you. But you have to go through that first. You have to learn to experience that first. If you depend only on others at the beginning, you're not gonna build the skill sets. You're not gonna build the grit. You're not gonna build the rawness. You're not gonna build that attitude. You're not gonna build that found dedication and wanting to succeed. You have to go through that first, and I'm glad I went through that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think I've lent into, like, there's a lot going on in the industry that I think we're both similarly in, where there's definitely an energy of like, okay, like, we want you to have balance, we want you to have like alignment, and we want you to have like this energy and be in flow. But I think at the same time, like, you can't pull away from, there's an aspect of hustle that you do have to learn. Like, I think it's
For
important to
sure.
recognize that just because you didn't enjoy one thing at one time, and you felt like a little bit burnt out because you had to force yourself to do it, and now all hustle is like eradicated. I just think it's like, personally, I think is a little false, because I know for me my crutch is overworking, so I would have this opinion, but I just don't think that you can pull that out. I think the difference is in shift that it's doing something from a place of alignment, from rather than a place of like fear, which I think, I don't know about you when you started, but I know when I started it was like sort of driven by fear and sort of driven by proving a point. But I don't know about for you.
So you're saying when I started my own career, like my own independent
Yeah,
journey.
yeah, for sure.
So I would say it
Mm,
was, I think we all have inside of us at least a little bit of wanting it to prove it to others and to ourselves. I think we all have that within
mm,
us, whether it's some more than others. So I would say I definitely had some of that. But I also knew that I was never meant to for long term. I always knew I was never meant to work for a corporate company. Like I always knew I was meant to build my own stuff. I've always looked myself as a builder. I've loved building. I love creating. I've always been a creative. I've always been a
Hmm.
visionary. So for me, I've always been a believer and a dreamer. And I think that understanding that
Hmm.
allowed me to push forward, because my biggest thing that I always told myself, and I think maybe this could go back to, for your sake, the thing that moved you was the fear. For me, I think it was the regret of not building my vision, living out my dream, not doing what I wanted to do, being a creative, being an entrepreneur, a business owner. I think if I didn't pursue that, I would live in regret, and the biggest thing I didn't want to do was live in regret. Especially with the regret of knowing that I could have done it. And I decided not to because I allowed comfortability or safety or society to persuade and hinder my thought process. And I was just like, I'm not going to allow that. And that's why I took that opportunity when it was given to me like that by God, because I was just like, this is the sign. This is the sign. I was planning on staying
Hmm.
there another year or two. I wasn't going to leave till another year or two. So imagine if I stayed another year or two. Who knows if I would have gotten into another, maybe I would have gotten into a management role. Maybe I would have, then really there, I'm stuck.
Hmm.
I probably would have got, mentally, I would have stuck myself in there. And who knows? Who knows? So I think that sometimes we have to pay attention to what life is giving us and what life is throwing us based on certain moment, because life will give you the things you need without you knowing exactly what it exactly is, and it can give it to you in the weirdest ways. It might look pretty, it might not. It might look weird, it might look bad, it might look good. You don't know how life is going to give you something. But I think when life gives you something, and it's giving you something, whether however it looks or how it gives it to you, but you feel it and you know it, most likely means you have to go with what it's giving you, in the sense of whatever route you have to take moving forward, because those are the moments that define your future. I always say those are the moments at times that really that create the new you and help you step into a new
Hmm.
identity for yourself and remove the old one that you had. And we have to just become more aware, right? More aware of where we're at, who we are, where we want to go, and what are the signs that life is throwing at us, right? And
Hmm.
understanding that, you know, through that, also as well, that once you're already there as a business owner or somebody who's creating success for themselves and how they see it, you know, we might also have a picture of how we see it, but life might not necessarily take you on that same exact route that you might be thinking of. It might take you in a whole different route. You could still get to your goal, but you might not get it the way you thought you were going to get it.
Hmm.
And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with that. As long as you're working hard. And the reason why I say work hard is because you have to work hard at first. Eventually, you want to work smart. That's the goal. Work hard to work smart. And then from there, you're going to be able to create that money time freedom that everybody's looking for, right? I think at the end of the day, we all want a sense of money time freedom. Everybody's definition can be different, but we all want that, right? For you, money time freedom could be different than what it looks for me, but you still want money time freedom. I still want money time freedom, right? A
Hmm.
certain level of money might be different than you what it is for me. A certain level of time might be different for you than what it is for me. A certain level of freedom might be different for you than what it is for me, but you still want money time freedom. So it's understanding what is a money time
Hmm.
freedom look like for you, and then what do I need to do to go get that, and just working through those motions every single day.
Yeah, that was powerful. I really appreciate you bringing that forward, and I can tell there's such a drive within you, and I felt this energy when I was researching some things for you. I'm curious, like, what is the thing that drives you forward the most? If you had like a gun to your head and it was like, hey, like this is the one thing, what would that be?
Oh, I'll say, especially now after I had my little one, I think that the biggest thing for me when I went through this exercise called Seven Levels Deep, it's a great exercise. I recommend everybody to go through it. I don't mind sharing you the PDF after, so you can send it to your audience. But it's basically an exercise that helps break down what's the most important thing to you, um, that you feel is the root cause of what drives you to go create the why of your life and create the success you're looking for. And for me, honestly, it's being able to give my little girl the opportunities I never had growing up. And that I would say is the biggest reason why I wake up every day and move, because I want her to have those opportunities that I was never able to experience, that I was never able to have, that I was never able to cultivate at the beginning. And I'm very fully appreciative of what my parents were able to do for me, and I love them for what they've been able to give me. But I want to give my daughter the things that I wasn't able to receive from my parents, not because they didn't love me, just because they were in a position that they couldn't give me those things. But I want to be in the position that I can do that for my daughter. So for me, I would say that's my deep rooted why that moves me every day.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I think I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people, and I appreciate you bringing that up. So, like I said, I've got a second tradition on this podcast, and the reason why I've got a second tradition is because when I was listening to podcasts for the first time ever, listening to a random bodybuilders podcast, the dude was like, if you don't fucking like your life, like, change it. And pinnacle of events had a load of things happen that end up spiraling me to shifting everything within my life. And I'm curious for you, if we were reversing a little bit back into Anthony's life, into a point where he was at that point for change, where he knew there was some things ready to come, where he's a little bit on the fence, there were some decisions to be made, but ultimately you knew that there's no time for delay, and it's time to get moving with a decision. If you wanted to spread a message to that one person, possibly that younger version of yourself, what would it be if they were waiting on that decision?
Yeah, great question. I would say the biggest thing that you need to understand for anybody who's battling within themselves with a moment of needing to make a transition, and you need to make a transition, but you're hesitant, you're scared, you don't know where to start, you don't know where to get the answers, you don't know what the unknown is, right? Sometimes the unknown scares you. You got to understand this and understand this clearly. If the world doesn't stop for you, why are you going to stop for the world? You need to keep moving. And moving can look differently for everybody, but you have to keep moving. And what do I mean by that? You have to move forward, right? Don't move backwards, move forward. Always move forward. And always look for answers, even if you don't feel that they might be the right answers at first. You have to look for. That's the whole point of looking for answers. So being proactive and taking action is the most important thing. You might not get it on the first one. You might not get it on the second one. You might not even get it on the fourth, fifth, or 10th one, but you might get it on the 15th one. And that's okay. As long as you're being proactive and you're putting in the work, that's making you a better individual. What that looks like for you can be different than for me, then can be different from Luke. But whatever it is that you need to do, you have to understand that you cannot stop for the world. You cannot be stagnant. You cannot sit still. You have to keep moving. And that could be just simply saying, you know what? Today I gotta get up and I'm just gonna go fucking walk. I'm just gonna go fucking walk. I never walk. I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna go fucking walk today. I'm gonna go walk a mile. I just feel like I need to go walk a mile. Go ahead and do it. For somebody else, it might be, I've been freaking running for a year now, and I've been hesitating to run. I'm gonna run today. I'm just gonna get up and I'm gonna start running, right? And I'm talking about physical right here, but that's just an example of what I mean. That everybody's movement can look different, but if you feel like the need of you have to go ahead and do something different, do it and move into it. Even if you don't know what the result's gonna be on the other side, go do it. It's gonna make you feel better. It's going to help you step into a new opportunity, a new realm. And when you step into the unknown, it teaches you a lot. It teaches you a lot about yourself. It teaches you a lot about the things around you. It teaches you a lot about the things that you will be receiving later on. It'll teach you how to be able to handle things differently. And will teach you a lot also about the world. And what you'll learn is that there's so many unknowns in the world. And I think that sometimes we hold ourselves back from opening these different doors that we are looking to open because we're scared on what's on the other side. And sometimes on the other side might not be what you were expecting. That is okay. As long as you know that when you make the decision to step in that unknown, it comes from a good place and it feels good. Now, the result might not always be the way you like it, but when you make the decision, it felt good and you felt like you had to do it. That's when you don't live in regret. The moment you live in regret is when you feel good about doing something and you don't do it, right? That's when you live in that regret because then you don't know what could have been. And guess what? When you step into the unknown, and it might not give you what you wanted, it might prepare you for the things that you're looking for. So understand that every unknown, every door that's left unopened, even if it's not what you thought or what it is you thought, will lead you to the next thing that you are looking for. So open more of those doors, move forward, learn, grow, um, make sure that you are constantly putting into effect the things that you're receiving, and just take massive action. Right, the more you move, the more you win, the more you succeed. You have to keep moving. The moment you stop moving, you die. I'm just a big believer in that. The moment you stop moving, you die, and that's why you got to move in every single facet of your life. And when you start doing that, you'll start feeling more alive in every single way.
That is that's one of the top ones I think that we've had as an ending. So thank you so much for that, Anthony. And I know you've got a course coming up, and you've got some things that you wanted to drop in. Since I think with all that radiant energy that you just put out, it's only deserved that you put this out. So I know you'd wanted to drop a few things in before we left. So do you want to tell the audience about what you've got coming so that they can go over and connect with that?
Definitely, definitely. So I'll say the first thing for anybody who wants to connect with me, you can shoot me over a direct message on Instagram at Mendez Fitness, Mendez Fitness. I'll make sure to respond back to you. I love voice noting, so if you get a voice note, don't get scared. It's me. So just keep that in mind. I will respond to you. I will respond. It might not be exactly at that moment, but I will respond to you. With that being said, what I do have some cool things going on moving into the new year. As our agency keeps expanding, we do already offer. We've been offering business coaching in the health and fitness space for quite a while now. And then on the marketing agency side, I think through our agency, we have a whole done for you service where we build out your ads, we build out your funnels, we build out all your ad campaigns, we build out all the copy. We also have virtual assistant plugins. We have a whole setup of automation for you for your business. The cool thing is we were doing this solely only for health and fitness on the marketing agency side. Now we have expanded it to different
Mm.
markets. So we are now working beyond health and fitness on the marketing agency side, and we're excited about that. We've already been doing it for a few months now, and we're going full steam even more into the new year, where we're helping now not just health and fitness professionals, but we're helping other people in other industries to be able to, automate and get automate their business, get consistent leads, and keep growing. So we're excited about that. So if anybody who has questions around that, we're more than happy to answer that for you. We will be having some cool, exciting events coming down in the near future, closer to the summertime, and we'll be more than happy to share that with you all.
Yeah, definitely drop over an Instagram message to him. It's like Mendez Fitness on Instagram. So with that said, guys, really, really appreciate it. Anthony, really appreciate your time, taking the time out of your schedule to come over here and give your wisdom. It's been an awesome, incredible podcast. And with that said, guys, just have a little bit of a think about who do you know. Listen to that message again. Like, go back, listen to this episode again. Go back through that message that Anthony spread towards the end and think about that person that needs to hear that in your life. Could be your mum, could be your dad, could be your friends, could be your siblings, could be whoever. It could be your entire Instagram. Share it out there. Because ultimately, it's not just about me and Anthony growing. It's about you. And it's about other people growing. Because with that, we raise this collective consciousness of the world, and we all step further down towards this happier, positive energy game of life that we're all living here. So with that said, don't ever stop. Keep moving forwards. We appreciate you, and we hope you have an awesome day.